and he's got a couple of T-shirts covering his face. He's got one that's kind of pulled up. All you can see is his eyes, basically. So he's got one T-shirt over his head, one T-shirt pulled up from below, and basically you can just see his eyes. And he grabs her out of bed, tells her not to look, and brings her out at gunpoint into the living room. And she's led into the living room, and she sees when she gets into the living room that Alex is face down on the floor in the living room, just like in the first home invasion. And he's got his hands behind his back, and he's lying face down in the living room, and the guy who came into Brienna's room with a gun gets her face down on the living room floor also. And after that happens, Brienna sees that Remington is being let out of his room. Remington sleeps in the nude. He was totally naked. And what happened with Remington, he was asleep in his room when the door is pushed open and somebody comes in, a different person comes in also with a handgun. And Remington happens to own a handgun. He owns a Glock. He wasn't able to get to it during this event, but he is familiar with guns, and he owns this Glock handgun, which is a semi-automatic handgun, and he sees that this second person, the one who has now come into his room, is holding what appears to be a Glock handgun. And this is a different person. This is somebody with, as Remington describes it, a stocky guy with like twisty kind of short dreads hair. And he drags Remington out of his room. So we've got two gunmen. All she saw is his eyes, and she described him, by the way, as kind of not stocky, kind of thin, with short hair. She can't really see his hair, but it appears to be short hair. So that's the one that got Brienna out of her room. This second guy is this stocky guy with the twisty dreads holding the Glock. So the stocky guy gets Remington out of his room and brings him into the living room. Gets him face down. Now it's Alex face down on the floor, Brienna face down on the floor, Remington face down on the floor. And as Remington is being led out of his room, his bedroom, to get to the living room, you go through the kitchen, and Remington can see now a third gunman. And this is a guy with long dreads, kind of a thin guy with long dreads, not the twisty little short dreads that the stocky guy had. This is a thinner guy with long dreads holding a rifle or an assault rifle, standing in the kitchen. So between Remington and Brienna, they see that there are three gunmen. The kind of a thinner guy with the T-shirts and the short hair, the stocky guy with the twisty hair holding the Glock, and the guy with the long dreads holding the rifle in the kitchen. The three of them are put down on the floor. One of them, and it's believed to be the guy with the shirts covering his eyes, who seems to be the leader of this thing, starts making some comments indicating that this is connected to the first home invasion. He even asks, is this the house that was robbed before? He says, who's the naked guy? Now remember, the naked guy is Remington, who was not. He asks, where are the other two? Okay, remember there were two people that were there the first time, Will and Brandon, who are not there now. He's asking, where are the other? And Brienna says, they're not here, they're at school. And he asks, when are they coming home? And Brienna doesn't answer that. And he says, meanwhile, somebody, one of them, is turning over things in the rest of the house, kind of like with an arm, like getting things off the tables and knocking them on the floor and turning things over. It appear that perhaps this was a robbery, although in fact nothing is stolen. Maybe some loose cash that was sitting on a counter perhaps was stolen, but nothing is stolen during this event. And they put on some, you can hear the sound of rubber gloves are being put on. And one of the robbers says, one of the home invaders says, give me one of those. And you can hear gloves being put on. And these three young people are face down on the floor, just like the first time, being held there at gunpoint. And then a shot. Brienna hears this gunshot, there's ringing in her ears. She feels blood coming down her head, down her face. She's been shot in the head as she lies there on the ground. Remington is shot in the head. Alex is shot in the head twice. Through what can only be described as a miracle, Brienna is alive. The gunshot somehow did not penetrate her skull. Somehow the bullet was, it's a miracle. She is alive. Also, by what can only be described as a miracle, Remington is alive. Same thing, the bullet somehow did not go into his skull. There is no miracle for Alex. Alex was shot twice in the head. Either one of those gunshots would have been fatal. One of the bullets goes through his head into the floor. The other one remains inside his skull. Alex is lying there dead in a pool of blood. After a couple of minutes, Brienna is playing dead, but she's alive. And after a couple of minutes, it's quiet. She figures maybe these people have left. She gets up, looks around. As she does that, Remington lifts his head up and looks around. They see that they are both alive. They see that Alex obviously is not. And they run out of the house. First, Brienna goes into her bedroom to see if she can find her cell phone, but everything's turned over in her room. They run out of the back of the house. They run through their backyard. She has to help Remington a little bit, who's more hurt than she is. There's a fence in the backyard. They go over the fence. Brienna has to help Remington. They're now in the backyard of the house behind them. They have to run around the backyard to the front of that house, and they bang on the door of that neighbor who lives behind them. Neighbor's name. So they bang on her door, and she is, Amy Scott is just getting ready for work. She's getting dressed. Her husband's there. She's a little freaked out by this, but they tell her to call 911, and she does. She calls 911 and tells them what happened, that there's these two people have been shot. There's this naked guy with blood all over him. She calls 911. That 911 call is made at 5:24 a.m. And the timing is important, as you will see. So this whole thing happened between a few minutes after 5 o'clock in the morning, and the 911 call is made at 5:24. And the police come, And they take Brienna and Remington to the hospital, and they stay there for a day or two in the hospital, and then they're released. And they are more or less okay today. As I say, it's a miracle. Police also go to their house, the 503 Bernardino Drive address, and they see Alex dead on the floor. As I said, this happened out in Ocoee. It decided very quickly to get what's called the Joint Homicide Investigative Team involved in this. And what that means is there are some municipalities that don't have a lot of murders, which is a good thing for the people that live there. But it means that the police departments in those jurisdictions don't handle a lot of murders. So what's decided to do in a case like this is to assign what's called the Joint Homicide Investigative Team, where they bring in detectives from other agencies that unfortunately do have more murders. And the person who's assigned to investigate this case, his name is Michael Moreschi. He's a detective, a homicide detective with the Orlando Police Department, who's an outstanding detective, an experienced detective, and as you will hear, he did an excellent job in this case. So he is brought in to be the investigator, the detective, to try to solve this murder. He goes to the crime scene at 503 Bernardino Drive with crime scene investigators, and they see what they see there. They recover a couple of fired bullets. One in the floor underneath that went through Alex's head, and another one that bounced off the head somehow of either Brienna or Remington, and it's on a coffee table. So they recover those two fired bullets. There's a third bullet that's later recovered from the medical examiner's office. When Alex is taken to the medical examiner's office, as I said, there's a bullet inside his head. There's a fourth bullet that they never found that apparently was in the hair of either Remington or Brianna when they ran through the backyard and jumped over the fence, and despite using metal detectors, they were just never able to find that fourth bullet. We know there were 4 gunshots. They try to find if there's fingerprints. They scour the house and do what they can to find fingerprints. They don't find any fingerprints that would connect with anybody who did this. They find a bunch of fingerprints that belong to the people who live in the house. So this is not a case that can be solved by fingerprints. Something they don't find, which is cartridge cases, and you'll learn a bit about handguns during the course of this trial. Cartridge cases is like the metal part of the bullet, the projectile part of it fits in there, and the cartridge case is left behind. So when the gun's firing pin hits the back of the cartridge case, the bullet flies out the barrel of the gun. The fact that they don't find cartridge cases, there are 2 different kinds of handguns. There's what's called a semi-automatic handgun. Semi-automatic handgun has a magazine that goes up in the handle of the gun, and when you fire a semi-automatic handgun, which a Glock is, the bullet goes out and the cartridge case gets ejected out of the gun and would land on the floor. There were no cartridge cases in the living room, which would indicate that stocky guy with the gun, with the Glock, is not the shooter. And we know it's not rifle bullets that were fired. So it's not the guy with the long dreads in the kitchen. It's the guy who got into Brienna's room with the other handgun by process of elimination. because a revolver does not eject cartridge cases. So there's two kinds of guns. There's the semi-automatic, which a Glock is, which the stocky guy had. Those would eject cartridge cases. A revolver, which is like a gun in the Old West, you know, which has the cylinder that spins around. With a revolver, the cartridge case, the fired cartridge case, remains inside the cylinder. So we know from this that the shooter had a revolver, and by process of elimination, that's the guy who had his face covered and went into Brienna's room. Detective Mareshi goes to the hospital and interviews, once they're able to talk to him, Brienna and Remington. And as I say, they're more or less okay. And he learns from Brienna and Remington about what happened and what the murderers were saying about who's the naked guy and where's the other two. And it becomes apparent that this is connected in some way to that first home invasion. And particularly since the first home invasion was about to go to trial the very next day, it becomes apparent that this was an attempt to kill the witnesses from that first home invasion so that they would not be able to testify in the trial the next day. So you would hear that, you know, these are somehow connected. Well, except that Mr. Okafor and Mr. Bernard were arrested back when this happened, back in May. Detective Mareshi checks the jail records. Bernard is still in jail. He was in jail from the day he was arrested, is still in jail. Bessman Okafor, however, is no longer in jail. But Bessman Okafor had bonded out of jail. And anybody who's arrested can make what's called a bond motion, where you come into court and you request from the judge a bond to let you out of jail before the trial. And that's what happened. Mr. Okafor makes a bond motion. This happened back in June. Went to a judge, not Judge Kess, by the way, went to a different judge, and that judge decided to grant Mr. Okafor a bond, even though he was basically caught red-handed doing this earlier home invasion, and he is let out on bond in June. And when he's let out on bond, he's put on what's called home confinement with an electronic monitor. And you'll hear, I'll talk about that in a few minutes about how that works. But there's an electronic monitor, there's like an ankle bracelet, and basically this works like if anybody has or had a cordless phone, where there's a signal that comes from the ankle bracelet that goes to a unit that's placed inside the home. And there's a radio frequency signal, and you can tell when you're in range of that base unit and when you're not in range of that base unit. It's a simple process, say pretty much like a cordless phone. And it's not a leash. I mean, you can leave. You know, it doesn't keep you there, but it will keep a record of when you're there and when you're not. Now, I'll talk about that in a moment, but as it turns out, Mr. Okafor has an appointment with his home confinement officer that very day, May 10th. And the way it works with home confinement is you're given a schedule by a home confinement officer every week. You meet with that home confinement officer every week, and you're given a schedule. So it's not like you have to remain home every second of the day necessarily. The home confinement officer will work out with you when you're allowed to be away from home. And you're allowed to be away from home if you have a job, you're allowed to be away from home if you go to school, you're allowed to be away from home if you have a doctor's appointment, you're allowed to be away from home if you have to go to court. And you sit down with the home confinement officer every week and they work out with you a schedule and they give you a written schedule of when you're allowed to be not at home. And Mr. Okafor's regular meeting with his home confinement officer is that afternoon, about 3 o'clock on September 10th, which is a Monday. His home confinement officer, her name is Meg Hughes. And the home confinement officer is near the jail, if you know where that is. It's near John Young Parkway and I-4. So he's due to see his home confinement officer at about 3 o'clock. There's a sign-in sheet in the waiting room. He signs in, Bessman Okafor. When Meg Hughes goes out to see him, he's not there. Meg Hughes had met with him every week for the past 2 or 3 months. Got a lot of information from him, such as knew where he lived, knew what his cell phone number was, his phone number, called him a number of times on his cell phone. And she calls him at 3 o'clock and says, "Where are you? You're supposed to be here." He says, "Well, it was too crowded." She says, "Well, you got to come back. You need to come back." He never does. She calls him a few times and he just never comes back to the office. The decision is made to the police go out to his house. Meg Hughes goes with them, doesn't go all the way to the house, waits a block or two away. As the police come up to the house, Mr. Okafor is seen running away from the house. He's on September 10th. He lives at he lives at an address on St. James Road, which is right over here. Police go to his house. Inside his house is some people, including a very pregnant young lady. Her name is Sharia Gordon. Sharia Gordon is several months pregnant with Mr. Okafor's child. She has another child by him. The police talk to Sharia Gordon. She insists she was home all night. She was at that house all night with Bessman Okafor. They never left. They were there all night. They were there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and she is his alibi. I said there are home confinement records, and this is not a complicated system about the electronic monitor. It connects through radio frequency signal to this base unit. There's a schedule that he has, and there is a record kept of when that in contact with the base unit in the house and when it is not. And when it is not in contact, and if it's at a time when the schedule shows that he should have been home, there is a record kept of that. It's called a curfew violation, when the range of the base unit. And lo and behold, on the morning of the murder, Mr. Okafor's home confinement records show that his electronic monitor attached to his ankle on 3 different occasions that morning. Once at about 2 o'clock, once for about 20 minutes from about 10 to 4 till about 10 after 4 a.m., and also out of range of that base unit for an hour and 6 minutes from, I believe it's about 4:40 in the morning till about 5:47 in the morning. His electronic monitor is out of range. And as we know, the murder happened between 5 and 5:24. The police go back to she insists she was home with him all night. Doesn't know anything about any home confinement records. She was home with him. She is standing by her man. Police recover her cell phone, Sharia Gordon's cell phone, when they search the house, and they also recover Mr. Okafor's cell phone. And this is the same cell phone that Mr. Okafor had provided to, the same phone number that Mr. Okafor had provided to Meg Hughes, and in fact the same phone she called him on at 3 o'clock in the morning, in the afternoon on September. The office recovered those cell phones. And as you will hear, there are records of cell phones, and you will learn about how all that works during this trial. And cell phones, the way they work, they connect to cell towers, and you've probably seen there are cell towers all over town. You know, they've got them all over the place. And the way a cell phone works is when you make or receive a call, it connects to a cell tower. It'll generally connect to the closest cell tower in range. And as I say, place. And the phone company keeps records of which tower, of all the calls that every cell phone makes, at what time, to what number or from what number, and what cell tower it connects with. And as you will hear, the way the cell phone companies set these cell towers up is you can think of like setting up a sprinkler system in your yard, where each tower will have a particular area, and you want the whole yard covered. You want a little bit of overlap. You don't want too much overlap. You don't want to waste water. The cell phone companies work the same way. So they have towers all over the place to cover, each one cover a particular area. In addition to that, not just do the towers go circular, covering an area, there are generally 3 antennas on each tower pointing in different directions. And the cell phone companies keep that the cell phone is connecting to at what time, but which antenna or sector of the tower. And you can think of that like a pizza pie that you slice into 3 slices if there are 3 towers. Some towers have 6, so 6 slices. But if it's a 3 antenna tower, each antenna will cover an area of about 120 degrees. And only for a particular area. It won't go out forever. It'll just cover a wide area. So the police, Detective Moreshi gets the cell phone records for Mr. Okafor's phone and Sharia Gordon's phone. Those records show for Mr. Okafor's phone, by the way, before I take this one off, let me just show you what we've got here. This is Mr. Okafor's residence right here. This is the victim's house in Ocoee, way out here. The cell phone records for Mr. Okafor show, far from him being home all night, we already know this from the home confinement records, that in fact he made a phone call at 3:52 a.m. right about from hitting from a tower over here. And Sharia Gordon lives over here. So at 3:52 a.m. he's making a call to Sharia Gordon. And Sharia Gordon at that time is at a tower covering her home. Mr. Okafor's phone records further show that at 4:44 a.m., he makes another phone call right about up here. This is Silver Star Road, by the way. He makes a call up there at 4:44 a.m. to a person named Emmanuel Wallace. Wallace, as it happens, also happened to be at the house at Maple Grove where Mr. Okafor was arrested back in the first home invasion back on May 9th. So he makes a call to a person named Emmanuel Wallace up there, and Mr. Okafor's phone records further show that at the time of the murder, at 5:05, 5:25 a.m., he is hitting off a tower that covers 503 Bernardino Drive. There's a phone call with Sharia Gordon at that time and another phone call with Emmanuel Wallace's cell phone at that time. That's where Mr. Okafor is at the time of the murder. They also get the phone records of Sharia Gordon. Sharia Gordon's phone records show she started out at her residence at 3:50 in the morning, and later, between 5 and 5:25 in the morning, she is also hitting off a tower covering the crime scene in Bernardino Drive. She's with a different phone company. She's with AT&T. Mr. Okafor's with Sprint. They're actually two different towers, but they both cover that area of the crime scene. So it's obvious Sharia Gordon is lying. The police talk to Sharia Gordon again. She insists, nope, I was home with him all, I don't know anything about any records or anything. I was home with Mr. Okafor all night. We never went anywhere. She is standing by her man. She doesn't stop there. You can see from the phone records that Mr. Okafor, in order to get out to the crime scene, would probably go something like this. Take a trip somewhere in that. The easiest way out is, or the clearest way out is to go up on Silver Star Road, which is up here. And in fact, one of his phone calls was up there on Silver Star Road. So he decides to look for, see if there's any surveillance cameras, perhaps. You know, businesses sometimes have surveillance cameras, and maybe he'll get lucky. So they start checking around for surveillance cameras that might be up in some businesses up in Silver Star Road. There's not a lot of businesses up there. There's a gas station up there. This is a Marathon gas station up on Silver Star Road. Lo and behold, they have surveillance cameras. And the police recover videos from the surveillance cameras. And what it shows is a couple of white cars pulling into the Marathon gas station at about 4:45 that morning. And it shows a very pregnant woman getting out of the passenger seat of one of those cars and going into the store that's connected to that gas station. And there's another surveillance camera inside the store, and you can see the pregnant woman inside the store, and that pregnant woman is Sharia Gordon. She is inside that store at 4:45 in the morning, paying for gas for these two white cars. And you can see that there are a couple of men that are, you don't get there's no close-up, but you can see that a couple of men are putting gas into these two white cars. And looking at the video, and then she gets back into the passenger seat of the one car, and those two cars drive off. And as they drive off, you can get a fairly good picture. And one of those cars is as I say, it's a white car. It appears to be a Chevrolet Malibu. And it appears to be missing a door handle on the passenger side. And when the police went out to arrest Mr. Okafor, a Chevrolet Impala white missing a door handle is parked there at the residence. And that Chevrolet, it's a Chevrolet Malibu. Let me get my car straight. It's a Chevrolet Malibu missing a door handle. And that car belongs to Takethia Ruffin, who is Mr. Okafor's sister, and he lives with her at that house. So this car missing the door handle, parked at the residence where Mr. Okafor is arrested on September 10th. That car in the Marathon gas station video. The other car appears to be a white Ford Taurus with a little front end damage. And the police don't know it yet. At that time, Detective Moreschi doesn't know at that point what that white Ford Taurus is. So the police now go back to Sharia Gordon and show her these photographs, and she realizes that her alibi story is not going to work anymore. And she decides to tell the truth to the police. What she says is, yes, she was not home with Mr. Okafor all night, as she had said. She was at her house. Over here, this is Cypress Street or Avenue, I believe, is where this is. And that's where she was. And she was asleep there at her house. She had a couple of kids, one of them Mr. Okafor's, who were asleep. As I said, she was pregnant with another child of Mr. Okafor's, and sometime early that morning, Mr. Okafor makes a phone call to her and says, "I'm coming to pick you up." And he does. He arrives and picks her up. She gets the sleeping kids, carries them into the car. Mr. Okafor is driving Takethia Ruffin's Malibu. And Sharia is very familiar with that car. She's seen Mr. Okafor driving it many times. And he picks her up in that Malibu and takes her and the kids back to his house. Back over here. And they quickly drop the kids off. They put them in bed. They're another adult or two in the house. Takethia is apparently. And off they go. Mr. Okafor gets back into the driver's seat of the Malibu. Sharia gets into the passenger seat of the Malibu. And where do they go? They go to pick up a friend of Mr. Okafor's. Mr. Ciceron lives pretty close to Mr. Okafor. He lives over here. And they pick goes into the house, gets Mr. Ciceron out. Mr. Ciceron comes out. Mr. Ciceron gets into a car that is parked there that is a white Ford Taurus with a little front end damage. They start driving out towards Ocoee. Mr. Okafor going first and Mr. Ciceron and his Taurus going after. And they stop for gas at the Marathon gas station, from what Sharia Gordon says, and this is up here again. And Sharia Gordon admits, yes, that's her that goes into two cars. Her in the Malibu and Mr. Ciceron in the other white car. After getting gas, they continue going. They go out and they go down a bit. She's not sure exactly where it is. They go to what she describes as what seems to be an abandoned house or a vacant house. Both cars. And there's now a third car that is there. And this car Sharia has also seen many times. And this car is a Chevrolet Impala that is owned by another sister of Mr. Okafor. Her name is Candace Ruffin. And that car is very distinctive because it's missing 3 hubcaps. Only has 1 hubcap on the, I think it's the right, on the passenger side and the back. That's 1 hubcap. The other hubcaps are missing. It's an older car. It's got a little black horizontal molding going down each side. It's a very distinctive car. And she, as I say, has seen that car many times before. They get to this abandoned house. There are now 3 white cars at the abandoned house. There's the Ford Taurus that Nestle Cicerone is driving. There's the Malibu that Mr. Okafor is driving with Sharia Gordon in the passenger seat. And there's now this third car, which is this Impala with the missing hubcaps. And there are 2 other gentlemen in this third car. One of them she knows is Emmanuel Wallace. He has long dreads. Another one is a person she didn't know, but she hears his name being mentioned as Darnell. And he's a stocky guy with little short, twisty dreads. And these are the 2 guys in the Impala. So they're there at the abandoned house for a little while, not for very long. Mr. Okafor tells her, keep going out straight, go through 2 red light, 2 lights, wait by the side of the road. I want you to be a lookout. According to Sharia, she didn't know exactly what she was being a lookout for. She's known over the years to do what she's told when it comes to Mr. Okafor and not to ask questions. She figured it had something to do with his case because she knew that this case was going to trial the next day. She didn't know exactly what it was. She does what she's told, and she goes through 2 lights. She goes, this is White Road, it's called, and she waits by the side of the road. And soon afterwards, the other 2 cars. She sees, by the way, Mr. Okafor get into the Impala with Mr. Wallace and Mr. Godfrey, or Donnell, as she knows him. So there's now the 3 of them, Okafor, Emmanuel, and Donnell, in the Impala, the one with the missing hubcaps. Cicerone remains in his car, the white Ford Taurus. So all 3 cars go. This is Clark Road that's coming down here. They go across. Sharia says she waits by the side of the road. The other 2 cars keep going. Exactly sure where they're going. She waits there about 20 minutes. She has a phone call with Okafor. He tells her to go back. She does, after waiting there about 20 minutes. So that's what Sharia Gordon finally tells the police. Sharia Gordon has been arrested. She's been charged with some serious crimes. She has pled guilty to some serious crimes. She will be sentenced by Judge Kest when all this is over with. And she will testify in this trial. So now Detective Mareshi has gotten the name of Nestle Cicerone. And they go speak to Mr. Cicerone, and Mr. Cicerone is, although at first he says he doesn't know anything about it, he comes clean pretty quickly and is much more truthful up front than Sharia was, and basically says the same thing that Sharia said. And what Mr. Cicerone says is he was home at his house. He lives on Judy D. Drive, which is this house over here. He's asleep in his bed. Mr. Okafor comes by. tells him he needs him for something. Cicerone gets out of bed. Mr. Okafor grabs some car keys that this car actually belongs to another person named Tony Nelson, who slept through this whole thing in another bedroom, but grabs these car keys for this car that was sitting on the counter apparently that belonged to Mr. Nelson, gives them to Mr. Cicerone and says, come on, I need you. And Mr. Cicerone gets in the car, which is this white Ford Taurus with a little bit of front end damage, and starts following Mr. Okafor. And as he starts following him, he sees in this car that it needs gas. The gas light comes on, and he pulls up alongside Okafor's car, rolls down the window. He now sees for the first time that Sharia Gordon is in the passenger seat of that car. He tells Okafor, hey, I need gas. And they pull into this Marathon gas station. And he describes the same thing about what happened in the Marathon gas station. They get gas and then they keep going. And Mr. Cicerone also says that they go out to this, they go here along Silver Star, they go down, this is Good Homes Road, and they come to this, what out towards Ocoee, where there is a third car. Gordon described, and this is the Impala with the missing hubcaps, Candace Ruffin's Impala with the missing hubcaps. It's a car Mr. Cicerone is a friend of Mr. Okafor's, has seen many times before and knows this car, and sees the two people that were in that other car. And they are Emmanuel Wallace, here's a photo of Mr. Wallace. I'm sorry, this is Mr. Godfrey. I apologize, I did that backwards. But this is the stocky guy with the little twisty hair, and Mr. Cicerone knows him, knows Donnell Godfrey. Is a friend of Mr. Okafor's. He's played basketball with him. So he says one of the guys in the Impala is this guy, Donnell Godfrey. The other guy in the Impala is Emmanuel Wallace. And I don't know if you can see this well enough. I got to get this centered. I don't know if it's clear enough to you, but he's the guy. This is Emmanuel Wallace. So Mr. Cicerone knows both of them, and he describes pretty much the same thing as Sharia Gordon said, that they're there at the vacant house for a few minutes. Mr. Okafor tells Mr. Cicerone, I need you to be a lookout. I need you to follow me and call me if you hear anything, any police or anything like that. Call me. Mr. Cicerone says, I didn't bring my phone with me. My phone is still in the charger next to my bed. So what Mr. Okafor does is he goes over to Emmanuel Wallace, takes Emmanuel Wallace's cell phone, which Mr. Cicerone had seen before. It's got a purple cover, gives it to Cicerone, says, here, use this. If you hear anything, any police or anything like that, Mr. Cicerone says he wasn't exactly sure what this was all about. He knew it was something illegal. He thought he thought it probably had something to do with Mr. Okafor's case. He knew it was going to trial. Says he didn't know exactly what was going to be happening, though. So Mr. Cicerone, so basically what happens is Mr. Okafor gets into that white Impala with Mr. Wallace and Mr. Godfrey. Mr. Okafor's driving now, getting to that car. Over to the passenger seat of the Malibu. Mr. Cicerone remains in the Ford Taurus, and off they go. Further west. According to Mr. Cicerone, sight of the other cars. The other cars go before him. He kind of loses sight of the other cars. He has a little phone call with Mr. Okafor about where'd you go? Mr. Okafor says, keep going. You just got to go a little further. He keeps going further. He eventually sees the Impala that's being driven by Mr. Okafor with Wallace and Godfrey in it. Okafor tells him to follow him, and they do. And they go down into this neighborhood. And according to Mr. Cicerone, he's told to stop and wait. He waits by the park, and he waits down there, and the other car with Wallace, the Impala missing hubcaps, keeps going. He doesn't see exactly where it's going, but it makes a left and keeps going. And Mr. Cicerone is going to wait there as a lookout. Mr. Cicerone says he knows that Okafor had this home confinement monitor on it. He says that Mr. Okafor had previously told him that as long as he's back in a half hour, it's not a problem. I don't know where Okafor got that idea, but that's what he thought. And so Cicerone is waiting there, and he's waiting there about 20 minutes, and he starts getting nervous that he's obviously been out of the house longer than a half hour, and he decides to leave. And he goes back, he starts going back to the abandoned house, and as it happens, the other car, the Impala, is leaving anyway and follows him back. And they go back to the abandoned house, and Sharia also comes back to the abandoned house. Mr. Cicerone ends up driving Mr. Okafor home. That Impala was seen at, the one with the missing hubcaps was seen at Takithia Ruffin's residence where Mr. Okafor was arrested back on September 10th, along with the Malibu. So that's what Mr. Cicerone says. Detective Mareshi keeps investigating. As I said, he found the surveillance camera up at the Marathon gas station. There are two other surveillance videos that Detective Mareshi finds. One is from a red light camera that's over here. We all know these red light cameras, you know, if you don't love them, don't we? You don't make a full stop, they give you a ticket, and at a red light, that can happen to you twice, in fact, as I can attest. Anyway, there's a red light camera at White Road and Clark Road, right over here. And it's actually looking down in this direction, looking down that way. So you can see cars going across. And from this red light camera, at about 5:01 a.m., you can see, you can't see who's driving, but you can see three white cars. You can see the first car that goes through is the Malibu, driven by Sharia Gordon. The next car that goes through is the Impala with the missing hubcaps going out west toward the victim's house. The other car that goes through is the Ford Taurus, driven by Nestle Cicerone. That's, as I said, about 5:01, 5:02, something like that. And then from that same camera, you can see coming back the other way, coming away from the crime scene, the same three cars. First, Mr. Cicerone. This happens about 5:27 or so. Mr. Cicerone's Ford Taurus, the Impala with the missing hubcaps, with Okafor, Wallace, and Godfrey, and Sharia Gordon in the Malibu. You can see that on the red light camera. And there's another surveillance video that's recovered by Detective Mareshi. And this is from a neighbor of the Camposes at 503 Bernardino Drive. It's a house that's really catty corner to that house. And this neighbor, Macarena, she has a surveillance camera in her house. And as it happens, that camera is looking out towards a park. Somewhere, it's all right. And you can see on that camera a car coming up the street going towards the 503 Bernardino Drive house. And this is at about a few minutes after 5 o'clock. I think it's about 5:06. You can see a car going to this car is an older model, white Chevrolet Impala. As you can see it going by, going toward the house, you can see one hubcap, missing hubcap on the rear, on the front right tire. And then you can see at about 5:24 that same car coming back the other way. And again, this is Takethia Ruffin's Impala with two missing hubcaps on this side, on the driver's side as it comes back. Those are the surveillance. You'll also hear, there's still more evidence, you'll also hear that, as I said, Mr. Okafor's actual cell phone was recovered inside the house, inside Takethia Ruffin's house. And that cell phone has a lot of interesting. Detective Ed Michael, who's a world-renowned forensic digital examiner. And he will tell you that he examined this cell phone. And what he can see on this cell phone is that there were, first of all, a bunch of text messages that had been deleted right before the police got there. And one of those text messages is to a brother of Mr. Okafor, Dorian Ruffin, and a couple of weeks before the murder, where he says, all the witnesses are going to show up. So text messages. So there's a text message from Mr. Okafor to his brother a couple of weeks before the murder, and he's saying, my lawyer told me all the witnesses are going to show up. There are other text messages on the night of the murder on September 9th at 9 o'clock or so to another person, where he's saying, I need you to come over here. I can't text what it's about my case. There's some other things on that cell phone. It's a smartphone. You can look things up on the internet. There's an internet search that is made on September 9th, just a few hours before. The internet search is, how do you get rid of gun residue? his phone, you know, he checks in with Facebook, and I mean, there's a bunch of ways to be certain that it is Mr. Okafor's phone. As I say, it's the phone number that Meg Hughes had, and it's also a phone number that Sharia Gordon knows, and, you know, this is Mr. Okafor's phone, clearly. There's something else that Detective Michael can tell from this phone. And he can explain this a lot better than I can, but there's some memory in the phone of wireless routers that the phone will connect off of. You know, there are these, you know, you can have a wireless router, like you know, for Wi-Fi, I guess. I may be using the wrong terminology, but that phone will connect with it. It has a memory of about 20 such, and it will keep an address, what's called a MAC address, a particular identifier for a particular wireless router. Each wireless router will have what's called a MAC address with a particular identification number. So this phone, Mr. Okafor's phone, stores a record of the previous 20 Wi-Fi hotspots, if I'm using the correct term, that the phone connects off of. And this phone is recovered on September 10th, the evening of September 10th. Recover these MAC addresses from the previous 20 Wi-Fi hotspots that Mr. Okafor's phone has hit off of. Gets that information, he goes out to the crime scene. He goes out to 503 Bernardino Drive, equipment that can pick up the MAC addresses of wireless routers in that area. In the driveway of 503 Bernardino Drive, if one is sitting in that driveway, one picks up 2 of those Wi-Fi hotspots right in that driveway of 503 Bernardino Drive. As I say, it only has a memory of 20. The police also get the phone numbers for Mr. Godfrey, for Mr. Wallace. We also have the phone number for Mr. Cicerone. All of this is given to an expert with the FBI. His name is Justin Fleck. The FBI has what's called a team of experts that this is exactly what they do. They review cell phone records and determine where cell phones are at a particular time and place, or a particular time where they are, and he's the one that examines all the records. As I've already told you, Mr. Okafor was at the area covering the crime scene from 5:05 to 5:25. Sharia Gordon was at the crime scene at those times. He also gets the phone records for Mr. Cicerone. Mr. Cicerone, his phone was not active that evening, as Mr. Cicerone will tell you. He also gets the cell phone records for Mr. Wallace. And he also gets the cell phone records for Mr. Godfrey. He examines all of those cell phone records, and all 4 of them. Mr. Okafor, Ms. Gordon, Mr. Wallace, and Mr. Godfrey. All of them between 5:05 and 5:25 in the morning. Here's the crime scene. Here's 503 Bernardino Drive. The orange here is Mr. Godfrey. He's got a Metro PCS phone, so he's in off a Metro PCS tower. This is the coverage area, as you can see, covering the crime scene at 5:19 a.m. The green here is Ms. Gordon. She's hitting off an AT&T tower, also covering the crime scene at 5:26 a.m. Mr. Wallace and Mr. Okafor both have Sprint phones. They're both hitting off the same tower. Mr. Wallace is in blue. You can't see that too well. It's under here. Mr. Okafor's in yellow. They're both hitting off the same tower, also at the time of the murder. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the evidence that you'll hear in this case. You'll actually hear even a little more than this. The evidence is overwhelming that Mr. Okafor, who was on trial in this case, committed this murder, was one of the home invaders who came into the house at 503 Bernardino Drive a little after 5 o'clock in the morning. He got Brienna out of her bedroom, lined up everybody on the floor, and shot all three of them, killing Alex Zaldivar and shooting both Brienna and Remington. After you've heard all the evidence in this case, we will ask you to return a verdict of guilty as charged. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a break at this time to go back to the jury room. There are 16 of you. I do not know how long that's going to be. We're going to plan on about 15 minutes. When the deputy comes back to get you, if you need additional minutes, let us know. We'll work out a system whether it's going to be 15 or 20 or 25 or 30 after a period of time. But let's try it at 15. Don't rush. We'll get you back in here when you're ready, and we'll move forward at that point with the defendant's opening statement if they wish to make one. Thank you very much. Leave your pads on your chairs, please, and do not discuss the case. Folks, will be in recess 15 to 20 minutes. Mr. Altman, if you could clean off the mark on that thing, and if you're not going to use it, turn it off. I don't think Mr. Mosley's going to be using it. And why don't you guys go take your break?